It's midday. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the midday news here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Noble Crosby Annan. The bulletin is coming to you live from our studio here at number 35, John Hammond Street. Also live on 3news.com. Coming up this afternoon, MPP wrap up its rallies ahead of the Asin North by-election tomorrow. Also in the bulletin, board and management of the Tema Oil Refinery defend Torrentco deal, describing it as the best option for reviving the refinery and ensuring its long-term viability. We have details of these stories and a lot more coming to you shortly. Stay with us. Also coming up in the bulletin, barely 24 hours to the Asin North by-election, campaigning actively ongoing as the two leading political parties defy electoral rules to canvass votes in this crucial elections tomorrow. We'll tell you what the constituents make of the campaign messages, plus bring you the latest survey by Global Info Analytics, which suggests a tight race between the MPP's Charles Opoku having a slight advantage over his main contender, James Jachi Kwesing of the NDC. Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police is in the Asin North constituency to assess security preparedness ahead of the by-election there. Also in the bulletin, fuel tanker drivers begin nationwide strike over poor state of roads. LPG Marketers Association worried about a potential shortage in fuel if the strike lingers. And organized labor in the crunch meetings with the Ghana Revenue Authority over an intention by the GRA to audit their books. Let's get right into the details of the stories. And barely 24 hours to the polls, is campaigning still actively ongoing as the two leading political parties, the NDC and the MPP, defy the electoral rules, aiming to garner more votes in the crucial election, the by-election there tomorrow. Campaigning officially ended on Sunday, with the major political parties holding separate rallies at two venues. For residents, they are decided as to who to vote for despite the campaigning activities there. My colleague Eric Mawina Egbeta has more here.
It's the morning after campaigning officially came to a close here in the Asin North constituency, and as of this morning, officially, according to the country's electoral laws, campaigning must come to an end 24 hours to the opening of a poll. That appears quite far from the case here in the Asin North constituency as individuals continue to indoctrinate, if that is an appropriate word to use, undecided voters as to who they should be voting for come tomorrow. All across the constituency, the presence of the Ghana Police Service has been felt. FPU vehicles and pickup vehicles have been crisscrossing the entirety of the Asin North constituency just 24 hours to the opening of the polls. For officials of the Electoral Commission, they are ready as the district office of the EC continues to remain guarded by police personnel who are heavily armed as they await final movement and distribution of electoral materials to the 99 polling stations here in the Asin North constituency, where over 41,000 individuals are expected to vote. But with all of the campaigning officially coming to a close, our constituents here decided on who they will be voting for come tomorrow.
But me ba be say 2 days no. Me hu ne meto ama no.
Eni ba meto ma ba ma ne de ye de inu na da. Aba no de obi akoto a oto de ono wo pe. Ndi onya ona betumi aka kire me se me koto aba ma we. Abra ye ni yenya mfie bi a wo se ye ku ye num kakra. Ndi no de wo be hwe kuro no na ayeyi no. E de be boa no. No wa hwe kuro no ayeyi because e kuro ni ye a e wo kokura be ma na ni beje.
Me ma dwen mesin pisa jo question. Na wasese oji MP wa ha because o ni so ade hu obuade da ni moti o se oba obebua asema na asema so anyankoso because o ma ya ba nyina no ehu ade papa bia o mo ye emaye jo question de tumi so ni so ade hu obebua asema
about one year babeto no ye kire wadwe na o hwe wasetena na se enwema na uhu ni se ekoyi ma wo no eno na wo gina so na wa hwe na wa to ho aba.
So those were some views and opinions of constituents in the Asin North constituency, speaking with my colleague Eric Mawena Egbeta there, saying that by now they already decided on who to vote for in the by-election tomorrow. Well, meanwhile, a latest survey conducted by Global Info Analytics has shown that the new Patriotic Party is ahead of the NDC's candidate in the Asin North by-election. Now, details of the poll reveal that the MPP's Charles Opoku is leading the NDC's James Jachikwe by a margin of 1.1%, with 6.9% of the respondents undecided yet. Meanwhile, the NPP candidate is said to have squandered a commanding lead, slumping from 57% to his current 46.7%, while James Jachikwe is appreciated from 38% to 45.6%. In the meantime, we understand the Inspector General of Police is in the Asin North constituency. Let's speak with my colleague Komla Kluchi, who was pitched camp in the constituency for some update on the IGP's visit and the temperature of the constituency ahead of the by-elections tomorrow. Komla, thank you so much for joining us on the program. So we're saying that the IGP has arrived in the constituency, although the NDC chairman earlier raised concerns of a lack of meeting between themselves, the political parties, and the security agencies, plus the Electoral Commission. Tell us more about the IGP's visit.
Well, I mean, it's a standard meeting that normally the election management body headed by the Ghana Police Service hearing. I mean, if it's a national one, the IGP is part of it or is the head of it. Whenever they are doing this, it's virtually the same thing that's been replicated here, but this one is just a localized one. But the national is taking control of it because of the interest in this, and I mean it's stemming also out of what transpired in Mewu. This IGP has decided to be able to be the one in charge when it comes to these by-elections. So it's about meeting the stakeholders, apprise them on security modalities and all that. Some intel that we picked is suggesting to the effect that there's been some instruction and this has actually not been corroborated by the IGP yet, but information we have from our sources within the Ghana Police Service is that there's been an instruction given to the bodyguards of MPs who are in the Asin North constituency to deposit their firearms with the nearest police station until this by-election is over. It's not too clear why the IGP is issuing out all of this, but the MPs who their bodyguards are holding on to these firearms, which they legally own, is or they are indicating that, I mean, this is a directive that is moot. They are going to define this. It is for protecting them as members of parliament, and so they do not see why the IGP, for instance, would be issuing out this directive or instruction. But I mean, to a very large extent, I am pretty sure this may probably also be coming up in the meeting. But beyond this, there's also that appraisal or that apprising that the the security services together with the electoral commission will deal with the two sides of the political divide. But I mean, as it is now, there are actually three. The LPG's own is also there, so it is quite high in terms of stakes. And this meeting, I am pretty sure the NDC's national chairman already throwing accusations at the police. There's an issue about the police doing a health screening during a by-election time. All of these issues they have raised that they think is just a deliberate ploy to help the government rig the election allegedly. And so some of these concerns would actually be raised at this particular meeting, but it's ostensibly to brief them on the measures that they are putting in place to ensure a free and fair election.
So, Kamala, we know that the Electoral Commission directed the political parties to end all campaigns yesterday, but we understand some political parties, some aspirants and their supporters, they're still campaigning in a full mood. Also, as you talk to us about that, tell us about the preparedness of the Electoral Commission, the arrival of voting materials and all of that.
Well, we have made efforts to get in touch with the Electoral Commission. Very early this morning, we pitched camp in their office. It doesn't. We are told that the management of this election is being done by the regional office. The regional director is yet to report to the Asin North constituency. We are told somewhere around 2:00, and so. We do not have the sense of whether they have all the materials delivered to them. But of concern is also how materials are going to be transported to some of the hinterland. Crosby, I can tell you, we foresee some difficulty because of how bad some of the road networks have become. And that is one of the things that we are hoping, if we get the Electoral Commission, we'll be able to put before them and find out how prepared they are. Arrival of material, I am quite certain that this has already arrived.
Okay.
But I'm not too sure how the deployment is going to be. But talking about deployment, the NDC, as we speak now, they are in that crunch meeting to deploy all their former appointees, MPs, national executives, everybody that matters in the NDC as we speak. They are deploying them into the hinterland starting from this afternoon so that they could have a very keen eye on this particular election and also act as agents and be able to police the polls and then the ballot as well.
Kamala Kluche, thank you so much for joining us with those updates from the Asen North constituency. Now, we know that the by-election, the all-important by-election in the Asen North constituency is happening tomorrow. And stay with us here, your election command center, for all the update on the elections, which is scheduled to happen tomorrow. Keenly between Charles Opoku of the NPP and the NDC's James Jachi Kwesi. We understand that according to Global Info Analytics, Charles Opoku of the NPP is leading the NDC's James Jachi Kwesi with a margin of 1.1%, with 6.9% of the respondents undecided yet. The NPP candidate is said to have squandered the commanding lead, slumping from 57% to his current 46.7%, while James Jachi Kwesi has appreciated from 38% to 46% in the election. Stay with us here for more updates on the elections in subsequent bulletins. We're still in politics, and the road is clear for the vetting of 10 flag-bearer aspirants of the New Patriotic Party from July 3 to 6. The governing New Patriotic Party on Saturday closed the filing of nomination forms for its presidential primaries, which saw one of the 11 aspirants, Nana Openwo-Dineho, pulling out of the race. The nominations officially closed with Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, Joe Gate, Alan Tremantain, Boache Jakon, Dr. Kofi Konadu Apreku, Dr. Uswa Freya Koto, Kujopoku, Kennedy Japan, Kwabne Japan, and former NP Francis Adainimo successfully filing, with 10 of them making promises to transform the economy, including reducing the size of government, amongst others. Well, the number of aspirants who filed to contest the 2023 flag bearership race is the highest since 2007 presidential primaries. We saw 17 aspirants contesting for the 2008 general election. election. The party has since amended its constitution to accommodate not more than 5 persons for the flag bearership contest, with a special delegate conference scheduled for August 26. Here is the director of elections of the party, Evans Nimako.
Voting has been scheduled to be held between 3rd and 6th of next month, July. And so after voting, the committee will submit its report to the National Council. After voting, if we have more than 5 people being given the green light to participate in the contest, per the party's constitution, there has to be special electoral college to sieve the number to 5. Through voting, at the end of the voting exercise, the first 5 will go to the next phase to participate in the November 4. This contest will have a certain leadership composition to constitute the electoral college.
Evans Nimako is the director of elections of the NPP there. To some other stories, and fuel tanker operators across the country have declared a nationwide strike over poor roads. The strike by both the petroleum tanker drivers and LPG drivers is seeking to draw attention on the need for road rehabilitation in key petroleum regions such as Tema, Takrade, Kumasi and Bupe. Now, despite their attempts to engage the Ministry of Transport, the drivers claim their concerns have been overlooked. My colleague George Queening has been following up on the story and will be speaking to him live. But first, let's take a listen to some of the drivers who spoke to him earlier.
Our roads are no good, and we are telling government to do it, and he's joking with us. So our cars are spoiling, and we are here suffering. So if not, we didn't go to strike, they won't do it. We want them to bring a contractor here for us and tell us that now this is the contractor coming to do the road before we can start work. If not that, no way.
The country gets chunk of its revenue from this entity, but our roads have been in bad state for a very long time. Car owners lose out.
So you heard some of the concerns of the fuel tanker operators across the country declaring a nationwide strike over poor roads. George Queening is a man on the beat of the story. George, thank you so much for joining us. You've engaged with the drivers and they've told you their concerns. But tell us, what is the situation like currently at the Tema industrial area?
So, Crosby, so across the country we have 4 factory depots, one in Tema, one in Kumasi, Takrade and Bupe, and all these areas have bad roads. And so they've been, putting these concerns before government and the relevant authorities, but nothing has been done about it. And the feel with this strike will impact the supply of petroleum products, and with that, government will feel the pain and, address their concerns that they've been drumming home over the years. And the Ghana Police Service were here, and they felt the tanker drivers had even parked the cars along the roads to, prevent other drivers from, drivers to, fly the road. But that was not the case. When they came, they realized that, yes, the drivers had already parked their cars and there's no interference whatsoever. And people who want to use the road can use the road at their own, term or condition. But it's very serious here. And if you look at the press release by the Ghana, National Petroleum Tanker Drivers Union, they pointed out that usually when cars fall, they have booze. But let's take it for instance, if that very vehicle or the whole truck is carrying a petroleum product, you can imagine the repercussion of that very situation. And this very enclave has 7 depots. So should anything untoward happen, it's going to be very, very disastrous. This is what they're trying to avoid. The government should really, really intervene and fix their roads. And they want government to, firmly commit to a timeline for repairing their roads. Until then, they will never cut fuel across the country.
George Queening, thank you so much for those updates. George Queening is a man on the beat, and this is relating to fuel tank operators across the country declaring a nationwide strike over poor roads there. Now, the Liquefied Petroleum Gas Market Association, they have raised concerns about a potential shortage of LPG as a result of the strike. This is a subject to be staying on and bringing you updates in our subsequent bulletins. But let's now move on to some other labor-related matters. As organized labor, we understand, is in a crunch closed-door meeting with the Ghana Revenue Authority over an intention by the GRA to audit the books of unions. But sources indicate that the unions are against this. My colleague Daniel Opoku is following up the story. He's a labor correspondent. He's joining us for some update and really what is going on with the auditing of the books by the Ghana Revenue Authority. Daniel, thank you so much for your time with us on the program. This is a call we understand that labor is not too happy about. They are in the meeting at the moment. Talk to us about it.
Right, so basically organized labor is in the meeting now, and they have met with the leadership of the Ghana Revenue Authority. According to them, somewhere for the past month, they have been receiving letters from the GRA indicating that they would want to audit their books and also find out what exactly in terms of their accounts have been done. So there are those whose letters had auditing from 2017, others who had from 2019, others 2018. And I think it has cut across the entire leadership of organized labor, which they are not so happy about. It was a closed-door meeting, actually, and the Secretary General is here to brief the media about exactly what they discussed with Ghana Revenue Authority. But it doesn't look like organized labor is going to accept that, because when you look at how their dues are paid and how transactions are conducted, based on that, they are not likely to accept those letters coming from the office of the Ghana Revenue Authority.
Well, Daniel, give us some insight on what exactly the GRA wants to look for in the audit.
You know, usually when GRA conducts audits and looks at the cash inflows, also looks at your expenditures and the other funds which have been used for other purposes. That's what GRA is looking at. But the unions are saying that they receive union dues. That's what they receive from controller. So controller pays the union dues after deductions are done from the various salaries of the various workers. That's what is paid to them. So for Auditor General, for the Ghana Revenue Authority to come and be talking about audits and also talking about taxes and all that, for them, they believe that it is far-fetched and it is not something that they are going to accept. So it was an organized labor meeting where Secretary General is here to bring the media out whether they will accept the discussions by Ghana Revenue Authority, looking at the taxes, also looking at the auditing and all those components.
Daniel Opoku, thank you so much for joining us with those updates from the meeting with organized labor, trying to find a way to, if you like, avoid the GRA's intended audit of their books. Now to some other stories. And the Deputy Commander of Operation Halt 2, which works to enforce the fight against illegal mining, also known as Galamsey, Lieutenant Colonel Louis Boachi, says the team needs robust vehicles for the operations due to the deplorable nature of roads leading to the forest reserves on communities where Galamsey is widespread. According to him, the onset of the rains has made it difficult for the team to ply most hard-to-reach zones. He's been speaking to 3FM.
Business at the seaport has been a major cause of concern to government and others.
We apologize for that. To bring you that sound later in our bulletins. But let's now talk to my colleague from the business desk, Daniel Obodu. This is relating to the directive by the Bank of Ghana on the usage of only armored vehicles for cash in transit activities taking effect. It appears some banks will experience some challenges in the operations over the next couple of period. The directive was issued by the central bank following the attack on a bullion van in Ablekuma that led to the death of a police escort. My colleague Michael Obodu, he's joining me here with more. Michael, thank you so much for joining us here. We've had this conversation about, bullion vans and the need for banks to make sure that they are equipped with these in cash and transit activities. What is really happening?
Crosby. The directive came from the Bank of Ghana, and originally it was scheduled to take effect on the 1st of July this year. But then due to the latest happening at Ablekuma, the directive has had to be enforced right away. Over the weekend on the 23rd, we signed a document from the Bank of Ghana indicating that now that rule was to be enforced immediately. Now, what this means is that there are some category of banks when it comes to this whole bullion van conversation. There are some that prior to the earlier directive from the Bank of Ghana, they had acquired their own bullion vans and they were managing their own cash pickup processes. Like Bank, I gather, for instance, have acquired their own bullion vans and they are doing their own pickups. Their head office is managing it for the branches. Other banks, like for instance Zenith, I gather, have acquired some bullion vans, armored bullion vans, but then have outsourced some part of that process to a third party. But there are others too that were relying on the soft skin, but then they used escorts, that's military or police, in addition to that. But now that the Bank of Ghana is stating that emphatically you must use an armored vehicle, it puts these guys in a bit of a tight spot, because that means that even though the directive was to come up on the 1st of July, these people would have to put some systems in place prior to that, because from what we gather, a lot of them had signed contracts with third-party suppliers for the 1st of July, but now they are a few days shy of that date, and so that means that there will be some challenge in the system. And if you remember from the interview last week with the Association of Bullion Vans, they did mention that as at last week, they had about 60% consignment of their armored bullion vans in town, and they were expecting some more before the 1st of July. So there's obviously some deficit over there. Some of the industry people I've been speaking with, including the Bullion Van Association, are saying that now the banks will, for instance, have to rearrange with their customers and increase the threshold for the amount of monies they can pick up, so as to reduce the frequency and ensure that shortfall in supply of bullion vans is catered. So that's about it. So there may be some challenges with pickup for the next couple of days until these armored cars are the association is able to secure and procure all of its armored vehicles and ensure that they are able to meet the demand on the market. But I also spoke to a banking consultant who also raised the issue of the fact that a lot of these banks have just gone through the domestic debt exchange program and are having some financial challenges. So the BOG's directive might be a bit heavy-handed, and so it's calling for some consideration in its implementation. So the voice you're about to hear now is that of Dr. Kojo Abuaji-Debra.
Yes. Security issues are very, very relevant and important. However, we are just emerging or recovering from, or not yet recovered from, the domestic debt program, where liquidity and solvency has been a challenge to most of the banks. And therefore, my plea on it to regulator is to see how we can do a balanced approach. We try to face this a bit and see why security is so important. Because of the cost implications, the cash flow issues, and therefore, with immediate effect, may have a toll on the cash position of most of the banks.
So that's the voice of Dr. Deborah speaking there, relating to the directive by the Bank of Ghana for the use of only armored vehicles for cash in transit activities taking effect at the moment, and appearing that banks will experience some challenges in the operations for the next couple of period until the period they were expecting the deadline to arrive comes into force. We spoke with my colleague Michael Obodu earlier, joining us in the studio with some update on that development. But that's how we wrap up on the Midday News Bulletin. My name is Noble Crosby Annan. There's always more news on our website, 3news.com, if you log on for more. Up next is Business News. Good afternoon.